Chapter 001 Rebirth. Yun Wanqing opened her eyes quietly and was startled by the scenery in front of her. Pavilions near the lake, green trees and flowers, colorful. What a prosperous scene. But why is she here? My head hurt so much. She reached out and touched her forehead, and her fingers immediately touched the bright red liquid. Then, memories that did not belong to her came flooding in like a tide. Bitch, you are a waste of food in this world. Why don't you die? Second sister, kill this good-for-nothing she is. A toad wants to eat swan meat, but she dares to take advantage of the second prince. Yun Wanqing, I'm warning you, don't think about marrying the second prince, or I'll beat you every time I see you. Dad, this bitch stole my exquisite bracelet and shamelessly peeped at the second prince taking a shower. Why did I give birth to a daughter like you? It has brought shame on Yun Mansion. Come on. Miss Seven is not allowed to step into Yun Mansion again. The unsightly clips in his mind kept replaying, accompanied by many bitter and even harsh words. Yuan Wanqing's face was expressionless, and his originally cloudy pupils were extremely sharp in an instant. There was a sneer on the corners of his lips. The clenched palms were so strong that the slightly sharp nails penetrated deeply into the palms, causing bursts of heartbreaking pain. Beaten, insulted, and unjustly accused. Damn it! How cowardly the original owner of this body must be to be bullied like this. This time it was even more outrageous. Just because her second sister said that the second prince wanted to see people jumping off the rockery, she volunteered to climb up the rockery and then jumped off. As a result, she hit her head and died. Depend on. If you don't play tricks like this, she is also the head of a family of traditional Chinese medicine in the 21st century. How come she wakes up and becomes the concubine of the Yun Mansion, who is neither loved by her father nor her mother? Oops. Dragon ring? Thinking of this, Yun Wanqing immediately looked at her fingers. When she saw the black ancient ring on her left index finger, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, although I traveled through time, I still have the dragon ring on me. Yun Wanqing raised his head and murmured while stroking the simple ring on his finger. The moment Yun Wanqing raised his head, the black ancient ring in his finger suddenly lit up with an extremely weak and strange light. The light disappeared in the blink of an eye, without anyone noticing. Depend on. TNND, Yun Wanqing has the urge to hit the wall and die again. Why did she time travel to a fool? As expected, I said how could this bitch be willing to die? Her purpose in pretending to be dead was to win the sympathy of the second prince and to make him look at her one more time. The person who spoke was her second sister, Yun Wanqing, the concubine of the Yun Mansion, who was the one who wrongly accused her of stealing the exquisite bracelet. Such a waste should have been kicked out of the Yun Mansion long ago and left to fend for herself. Why do you still keep her in the house? Now you are shamelessly seducing your soon-to-be brother-in-law. Damn it! A well-dressed woman slowly walked up to Yun Wanqing with elegant steps and said condescendingly, "It's not that her father and mother were kind enough to spare her life. Otherwise, just because of the things she committed, she would have died countless times." Yun Wanqing held a handkerchief embroidered with plum blossoms and gently placed it on the tip of her nose, frowning disdainfully. As she said that, she kicked Yun Wanqing, who was sitting on the ground, and said contemptuously, "Bitch! If you don't pretend to be dead, go back to your small courtyard quickly. Don't be embarrassed here and make the second prince unhappy." Chapter 002 Slap in the Face. Shut up, it's so noisy. Yun Wanqing stood up from the ground with a "huh" sound, and then pretended to accidentally step on Yun Wanqing's foot. Damn, you dare to kick her. If it wasn't her first time here, she wouldn't have figured out many things yet. She really wanted to cripple this girl's legs. Bitch, how dare you step on me? Yun Wanqing didn't expect that she would be so bold. She didn't hide away even if she didn't check for a moment. But even if she wanted to hide, she couldn't hide as long as Yun Wanqing didn't want to. "I'm so sorry. My foot slipped for no reason. Second sister, I didn't mean it. You have to forgive me." Yun Wanqing patted her chest in fear, and then pretended to be careful and apologized, but her expression and tone did not mean to take Yun Wanqing seriously at all. Bitch, you still dare to talk back. Yun Wanqing's cheeks turned red with anger, and he hit her face with his palm. Looking at the menacing look, if he hit her, her cheeks would probably be swollen for 3 to 5 days. Just when Yun Wanqing's palm was about to fall on her cheek, she stretched out her hand to hold her Hao wrist and said with a chuckle, I advise the second sister to calm down. If this slap is really slapped, who will suffer the loss? Also, I would like to advise you, don't call me a bitch, and be creative when you want to scold me. The word bitch is already ringing in my ears, and I think those 2 words are more suitable to describe you. You bitch. Before Yun Wanqing could say the word human, a burning pain came from her cheek. Yun Wan, Qing Yun Danfeng, waved her hand gently and said with disdain, Oh, I see that the second sister looks like a human being, but unexpectedly her skin is thick, and her skin is so thick that my hand hurts from being beaten. Phew! A joking chuckle immediately came from the pavilion not far away. A man in white rubbed his chin and said, They say the 7th lady of the Yun Mansion is timid and cowardly, but I can't see it. Huh, just an idiot. You wouldn't be interested in her, would you? The man who spoke was dressed in purple brocade clothes, with a high nose, thin lips, and sword-like eyebrows that slanted into a few strands of black hair under the temples. Although he also felt that Yun Wanqing was a little abnormal, he looked down on her from the bottom of his heart. Don't think that you can attract his attention like this. Don't even think about it. What? Idiot. Anyone in this world who dares to call Yun Wanqing an idiot has not been born yet. When Yun Wanqing heard the words, he followed the words and saw that the man had turned his face with disdain. Although he could only see the handsome profile, Yun Wanqing could also see the perfect and impeccable facial contours. No wonder the original Yun Wanqing wanted to seek life and death for him. Ganqing was truly a handsome man. However, that character is indeed not very good. Yun Wanqing, how dare you hit me? Yun Wanqing, who took a while to react, finally realized that she had been hit by the bitch she had always looked down on. No, he started going crazy again. He hadn't suffered enough from the previous losses, so he started to use his hands to hit people again. No, I'm not beating you. It's you, second sister, who is asking for the beating. Yun Wanqing shook his head and looked at Yun Wanqing as if he was an idiot. As he spoke, Yun Wanqing raised his palm and slapped it on Yun Wanqing's other cheek with a pop. I've reminded second sister a long time ago that you have to change your name when you see me in the future. Don't let me repeat it a 3rd time. At the end of the sentence, Yun Wanqing turned her cold eyes, and her eyes were like ice blades slashing at Yun Wanqing's body. His eyes were like the Azura from hell looking at his prey. To stir up trouble on Tai Sui's head is like hanging an old longevity star because he thinks his life is too long. Chapter 003, The Bad Guy Complains First. Miss Yun, I suddenly remembered that there is something else at home. Let's make an appointment another day. A sudden shudder came over her, and the woman standing next to Yun Wanqing screamed. Yun Wanqing and the others were often bullied, and there had never been a time when she felt fearful. Only this time, it seemed as if her brain had lost control, and her legs could not help but tremble. She suddenly wanted to stay away from this lunatic, so as not to affect innocent people. For some reason, she always felt that the woman in front of her, who was being bullied, had changed. Yun Wanqing was very angry at the moment, and she was very embarrassed today. All she could think about was how to deal with Yun Wanqing. She didn't have time to worry about other things, so she waved her hand to let her do what she wanted. The woman said goodbye quickly and ran to the pavilion. When the man in white saw her running in a panic, he laughed and said, "What's wrong with Huixin? I've never seen you so reckless." In fact, being reckless can be considered a good word. If Yun Wanqing was asked to describe it, she would definitely say that she ran away. But a monk who can run away cannot run away from the temple. The debt she owed Yun Wanqing in the past will be paid back sooner or later. "Brother, I feel a little unwell. Let's go back home first, Zhang Huixin said with a pale face, as if she felt Yun Wanqing's cold gaze. It turned out that the man in white was Zhang Shangshu's eldest son, Zhang Zhenyi. Hearing this, Zhang Zhenyi looked at Nan Gonghao aside with some embarrassment and said, Huixin, I still have to accompany the second prince. For some reason, he was very interested in this worthless waste who was demoted in the legend. The two slaps she just slapped were hard to understand. A concubine hitting a legitimate sister is so bold, he likes it. It's okay. I came here today to see an Xian. Anyway, I'm tired of staying around now. Let's go back, Nan Gonghao said and had already stood up, and his thoughtful eyes fell on Yun Wanqing. But when he saw her vulgar face, there was a hint of disgust in her eyes. The hope in Zhang Zhenyi's heart was shattered. He originally thought that he could stay a little longer under the banner of the second prince, but he didn't know that the second prince was so unusual today. He had only been sitting for half an hour and was about to leave. Although the second prince was ruthless, he had agreed to the marriage with Yun Mansion's second lady, Yun Wanqing. How could he watch his fiancée being beaten and remain indifferent now? Thinking of this, Zhang Zhenyi changed his mind and said, Second prince, it seems that second Miss Yun has been bullied. Don't you plan to come forward? Nan Gonghao waved his hand and said with a cold face, This is a family matter of the Yun Mansion, and it is not suitable for me, the prince, to interfere. Zhang Zhenyi could only laugh twice. It seemed that this ruthless second prince was not very satisfied with his marriage. Yun Wanqing naturally heard these words, and the corners of his mouth raised in disdain, once again deepening his understanding of Nan Gonghao's cold-blooded ruthlessness. That's right. If he still had a little bit of humanity, how could he not save Yun Wanqing when he jumped from such a high rockery? When Yun Wanqing saw Nan Gonghao and the others coming towards her, she immediately put away the anger on her face and hurriedly went forward with a grieved face. She said pitifully, Second prince. Seeing Yun Wanqing standing in front of him, Nan Gonghao frowned impatiently. He couldn't deal with an idiot. He really only had a face but no brains. If it wasn't for the support of the Yun family, how could he marry a person who has a good skin? Although he hates the Yun family in his heart, he can't show it on face. People have the shamelessness to come to him to complain. How can he pretend not to see anything? Nan Gonghao gently covered her face and said softly, Does it hurt? Why are you so careless? You are just too gentle, and you don't know how to fight back if you are beaten. Chapter 004, Who is Nan Gongming? Mild, Yun Wanqing couldn't help but roll his eyes. Second prince, your eyes are crooked, right? Yun Wanqing is so gentle. Then wouldn't the former Yun Wanqing become the Holy Mother? Second prince, the seventh sister is my sister no matter what. Although she is a concubine and has a low status, she is still my father's flesh and blood. When I saw her misbehaving, I gave her a lesson. I didn't expect that she would. At this point, Yun Wanqing made an expression as if he hated iron and choked up a few times. The voice continued, Seventh sister is naughty by nature and has nothing like the daughter's reserve. I know she didn't hit me on purpose. Since ancient times, there has been an orderly growth process. It was disrespectful to me for her to do this, but at least she still has the same blood as me. As the saying goes, if the bones are broken, the tendons are still connected. How could I be willing to fight back? Poor, my sister has had no one to teach her since she was a child, and now she's grown up and hard to control. My mother is almost worried about her marriage, but she's so unlucky. Don't you know who she is? She actually wants to marry you, the second prince. Seeing Yun Wanqing directing and acting, Yun Wanqing couldn't help but clap her hands and applaud. Today she finally saw what it means to be an acting genius. Unfortunately, she was born at the wrong time. If she had been born in the 21st century, the director would probably have awarded her an Oscar and a Golden Horse Award. Zhang Zhenyi secretly yelled, What the second prince hates most is when someone associates Yun Wanqing with him. It seems that Yun Wanqing has completely fallen into Yun Wanqing's hands this time. Sure enough, Nangong Hao's face was full of sinister birds of prey, and his face turned from sunny to cloudy, and he looked like he wanted to pull away the clouds and peel off his skin. Humph. I think she is going crazy because she wants to get married. Prince Duanqin's eldest son, Nangong Ming, is a very talented person, and he is a perfect match for your seventh sister. Princess Duanqin asked her father to let him arrange a good marriage for Nangong Mingji. How about the prince, return to the palace and ask for an imperial edict to make the two of them the couple of Qin and Jin. Thank you, the second prince, for showing mercy to the seventh sister. Yun Wanxin's eyes immediately shone, and a trace of vicious hatred flashed in his eyes. Yun Wanxin, marrying that sick man Nangong Ming is an advantage for you. But Nangong Ming is already the one who has one foot in the coffin. Everyone knows that he only married his wife for happiness, so it would be better to let this bitch marry her and bury her with her. Wanqing, why don't you thank the second prince quickly? Oh, marry someone? Are these people mentally ill? When will it be their turn to have their say in Yun Wanqing's affairs? But does Nangong Ming have a grudge against the second prince? Why would he give him a piece of trash? Nangong Ming, who is he? Yun Wanqing searched hard for information about Nangong Ming, but the original owner of this body only had memories of Nangong Hao in his mind, and the rest of the men were vague. Nangong Ming, it's not good. Zhang Junyi couldn't bear that Yun Wanqing's good years were wasted like this, so he just blurted out what was in his heart. Who is Nangong Ming? Yun Wanqing immediately asked with a cold face. Seeing that the expression on Yun Wanqing's face changed, and her face wrinkled again and again, Zhang Huixin was afraid that she would be beaten if she was unhappy, so she pulled Zhang Junyi and hurried out. Brother, this is someone else's family matter. We can't interfere. Are you kidding me? If Yun Wanqing knew who Nangong Ming was, not only Yun Wanqing, but also the second prince would probably not bypass them. What's more, there is an unpredictable Yun Wanqing. Brother, why are you so abnormal today? The second prince has already spoken, so why should we speak? Zhang Huixin whispered in Zhang Junyi's ear. Zhang Junyi came back to his senses. Fortunately, he had the wisdom to remind him. Otherwise, if he really messed up the second prince's affairs, he would probably trouble him later. Nangong Hao didn't like Yun Wanqing very much. He usually felt disgusted by looking at her more. How could he give her an answer at this moment? He just snorted coldly and strode away. Seeing this, Yun Wanqing naturally followed him all the way. When he passed by Yun Wanqing, he threatened in a fierce voice, "Little bitch, this matter can't be settled like this. I'll settle the score with you later." Chapter 005 Nanny. After everyone left, Yun Wanqing walked back to her remote yard following her memories. Although she had already been mentally prepared, only after seeing it with her own eyes did Yun Wanqing know what kind of life the former Yun Wanqing lived. No one lives here. She was afraid that the word remote was an insult. There was a yard full of weeds, a dilapidated thatched house that could collapse at any time, and the inside of the house was even more primitive. The only property was a wooden bed that was about to fall apart. "Miss Seventh, where have you gone?" "Ouch! My ancestor. Why is your forehead injured? Let the wet nurse see if there are any injuries elsewhere." Seeing Yun Wanqing come back, a woman in her 40s quickly put down her work and ran over to pull up her sleeves to see if she had any new wounds. For some reason, the moment she saw the woman, Yun Wanqing's eyes turned slightly red. She sniffed and said, "Nanny, I'm fine." Maybe the original owner of the body was too dependent on the nanny. At this moment, she also had an unspeakable emotion. In her memory, this nanny was the only person in the Yun family who truly loved her. The nanny only looked at Yun Wanqing to see if there were any new scars on her body, but she did not notice that Yun Wanqing today was different from the past. If Yun Wanqing had been wronged in the past, she would only shed tears of self-pity, but she had never comforted her out loud. It can only be said that she was too caring and did not even notice the smallest change. Yun Wanqing was the daughter of the fourth concubine of the Yun mansion. The fourth concubine was full of hopes when she was pregnant with Yun Wanqing, but she did not expect that she would be a loser when she was born, so she left Yuan Wanqing in the yard and gave it to the nurse. At that time, the fourth concubine would visit her from time to time, but the good times did not last long. 5 years later, the fourth concubine gave birth to a son. In addition, Yun Wanqing could not please and behave, so no one cared about her. From then on, Yun Wanqing lived a life dependent on her nanny. 7th Miss, don't blame me for being talkative. Miss Second Miss has ulterior motives. She will do nothing good every time she comes to you. Every time you follow her out, you come back injured. Next time she comes to see you, you must not follow her. The wet nurse persuaded her earnestly. Although she said these words no less than 100 times, she couldn't help but continue nagging. You go inside and rest for a while. I'll go out and buy you some trauma medicine. She thought that Yun Wanqing would think she talked too much like before, but this time she just smiled and nodded in agreement. Nanny, the wound on my forehead is fine. Just take care of it yourself. How can it happen? If the wound is not treated well, it will leave scars. It is not good for the girl's family to be disfigured. You will not be favored. It will be even harder to marry a good family in the future. The wet nurse started to wipe her tears as she spoke. Yun Wanqing frowned impatiently and lamented in her heart. It really proved the saying that women are made of water. The most embarrassing thing for her was for people to cry in front of her. In the past, she would have just slapped the table and told those people to get off, but the person in front of her couldn't help it. This was the person who loved the original owner of the body the most. Well, since she has taken over someone else's body, let's accept the mess she left behind. Thinking of this, she quickly patted the nanny's hand and comforted her. Nanny, you also need silver to buy gold sore medicine. Last month's monthly silver has been spent long ago, and I haven't had time to get this month's monthly silver. Why don't you go to the accounting office to get the silver before you go? Alas, the monthly silver given by the accountant is getting less and less month by month. At the beginning, it was 10 taels per month, and later it was 5 taels. Last month, it was only 20 taels of silver. This month, when she mentioned Yuan, the look on her face became sad again. After she was silent for a while, she added, Miss Chi, don't worry. I will figure out how to deal with the money. You go in and rest for a while. I will come back as soon as possible. Seeing the nanny's insistence, Yun Wanqing had no choice but to sigh and agree. In fact, she wanted to say that this small injury was really nothing to her, a descendant of a family of traditional Chinese medicine, and she really didn't lack the money with the dragon ring in her hand. However, she also knew that there were some things that the nanny couldn't accept as she told her, and she wouldn't believe it either. Chapter 006 Dragon Ring. Looking at the dilapidated thatched house, Yun Wanqing was really reluctant to go in. Thinking about eating and sleeping here, she had the urge to destroy the yard. Oh my God, was she, the head of a prestigious Chinese medicine family, allowed to live here in the future? Yun Wanqing felt powerless in her heart. She slapped her forehead hard, but suddenly it hit the wound. Oh, it hurts so much. Why did I forget that there was a wound on my forehead? Maybe I was really knocked unconscious. Fortunately, Long Jie followed. Otherwise, she would have had to point her finger and curse at God. People who traveled through time were either princesses or princesses, but she was lucky. Although she caught up with the traveling army, she ended up traveling through time as an unloved concubine. Closing his eyes gently, Yun Wanqing changed his mind and said, I want to go into the dragon ring. When she opened her eyes again, she had already entered the dragon ring. Speaking of Long Jie, Yun Wanqing couldn't help but tremble. This was not only an heirloom of their Yun family, but also a heaven-defying existence, passed down from generation to generation by the ancestors of the Yun family. The selection of the head of the Yun family is even more strange. Only the person who can make Long Jie recognize the master again can take over as the next head of the family. She was recognized by Long Jie when she was 5 years old, so Long Jie has been following her since then. The dragon ring is divided into 3 levels. So far, Yun Wanqing can only open the door on the first level, but even on the first level, people can be ecstatic because it contains not only a spiritual spring of healing holy water, but also an alchemy furnace and many alchemy formulas and cultivation techniques. Yun Wanqing has been practicing since she was 5 years old, and she has already entered the nascent soul stage from the martial arts world when she was 13 years old. But for some reason, her cultivation has been stagnant since then, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth she absorbs into her body will automatically dissipate within a quarter of an hour. If the Junshi refined over the years had not disappeared, then her talent should have reached the realm of Mahayana. Yun Wanqing always felt a little suffocated when she thought of this, but fortunately her alchemy skills had never fallen behind in these years. Otherwise, she really wanted to curse Tian Jianingai. At this time, she had walked to the Lingquan, stretched out her hand to pour the water from the Lingquan, and washed the wound on her forehead. The wound on her forehead was healing rapidly at a speed invisible to the naked eye, until finally there was no trace of injury anywhere. After cleaning the wound, Yun Wanqing poured the planted herbs one by one, and then sat on the ground and began to practice. Yun Wanqing closed her eyes and sat cross-legged, placing her hands in strange mudra in front of her body. Her chest rose and fell slightly, forming a perfect cycle between exhaling and inhaling. During the breath circulation, there was a light white air flow along the mouth and nose, penetrated into the body, and warmed the bones and flesh. Just when Yun Wanqing closed his eyes and practiced, the simple black ring on his finger once again shone strangely, then fell silent. Slowly exhaling a breath of turbid air, Yun Wanqing suddenly opened his eyes, and a faint white light flashed in his dark eyes. It was the fighting spirit that had just been absorbed, but had not been completely refined. The true energy gained through hard work is disappearing again. Damn it! Shen Shen sensed something in his body, and Yun Wanqing's face suddenly became angry. Yun Wanqing, you bitch. Where did you die? Get out of here. Young lady. At this moment, a sharp voice came from outside the dragon ring. Second sister, don't be angry. That idiot probably knew that he was going to marry Nangong Ming, so he was so scared that he hid. You can hide for a while, but you can't hide for a lifetime. Letting her be Nangong Ming's crown prince will give her an advantage. Yun Wanqing, if you don't come out, you bitch. I will burn this place down. Depend on. Yun Wanqing, there is a way to heaven, but you don't take it, and there is no door to hell, but you break in. Yun Wanqing stretched his numb ankles and thighs. Although he was only in the nascent soul stage now, he was really overqualified to deal with a waste like Yun Wanqing. After taking a few bottles of elixirs from the dragon ring, Yun Wanqing stepped out of the dragon ring. Then he slowly walked out of that dilapidated thatched house. Chapter 007, Looking for Trouble. Yun Wanqing and others had been shouting outside for a long time without getting any response. They were already very angry. Seeing Yun Wanqing's procrastinating way of walking 1 step at a time and then 3 steps at a time, they became even more angry. Yun Wanqing, didn't you hear me calling you? Yun Wanqing roared through gritted teeth. At this moment, she didn't look like an official lady at all. She was no different from a scolding shrew. Damn, it's called Chun when it's called so loudly. Yun Wanqing's heart was on fire, especially when she thought that the chi she had cultivated so hard for so many years would turn into nothing overnight. She wanted to grab someone and kick him wildly to vent her anger. Wrinkling in displeasure, Yun Wanqing reached out and picked out her ears and said, "You're not deaf, so you don't need to be so loud." It was obviously a very inelegant act to pick out ears, but Yun Wanqing looked very handsome and elegant when she did it. In addition, there was a playful smile hanging on the corner of her mouth, which actually gave people the feeling of a troubled young master, especially that smile had a hint of arrogance and a hint of unruly. It just added a bit of nobility to her action. As she said that, she had already arrived in front of a few people, and at this moment, she just raised her smooth chin, and her starry eyes were as bright as obsidian, which made people's eyes hurt. Several people were glanced at by her without saltiness and suddenly felt a chill all over their bodies, as if the air around them had frozen. People who are familiar with Yin Wanqing must know that she is angry and very angry. It's just that some people who don't know the situation just don't understand the situation, especially those women who are blinded by jealousy. When Yun Wanqing saw clearly Yun Wanqing's face after the makeup was washed off, she was so angry that she clenched her fists and with a click, even her nails were cut off by her. Yun Wanqing, you bitch, who told you to make your face like this? Her eyes were so jealous that they were about to burst into flames. Every time she saw Yun Wanqing's alluring face, Yun Wanqing wanted to take a knife and slash her face a few times. She was the legitimate lady of Yun Mansion, and only she deserved to have peerless appearance and praise from the world. But Yun Wanqing was nothing but a bitch born of a bitch. Why was this little bitch born to be more beautiful than her? Isn't it enough that the fourth aunt took away her father's favor from her mother? She also gave birth to a little bitch to compete with her in beauty. Although Yun Wanqing didn't have that mysterious ability to read minds, she could still read people's emotions. Judging from Yun Wanqing's jealous eyes and recalling that she, the cheap second sister, sent maids to dress her up every day, she had already guessed a bit. I think Yun Wanqing hates her so much because she is jealous of her beauty. What a stupid, extremely superficial woman. She snorted coldly and then put on her unchanging smile. The second sister asked this strangely. My face is naturally like this. What? Could it be that the second sister dislikes your face for being ugly, so she wants to change it with me? Yun Wanqing gritted her teeth and said, Bitch, you are the ugliest woman in the world. Everyone in the world knows that you are not good looking and you are the ugliest woman in the world. Moreover, you want to eat swan meat and want to marry the second prince. Do you really think that marrying the second prince will turn a sparrow into a phoenix? I tell you, it is absolutely impossible. After Yun Wanqing did this, the rest of the people reacted, especially the girl next to Yun Wanqing. After she came to her senses, a flash of cruelty flashed in her eyes. She pointed at Yun Wanqing's nose and yelled, Bold, you little bitch, you are just a loser born to my aunt. Since you dare to contradict your eldest sister, who allowed you to talk to your second sister like this. Pa. Yun Wanqing applauded. Second sister also knows that a sparrow cannot turn into a phoenix, and she still dreams that one day a chicken or dog will ascend to heaven. She is really a bitch. But I have to kindly remind the second sister that a pheasant will always be a pheasant. Even if she upgrades, she will be a higher level chicken at most. The second sister really wants to become a phoenix in this life, so I have a good idea. Why don't you ask your mother to stuff you into my aunt's belly and recreate it? That way, maybe you can still have some hope. Chapter 00, 8 The Soles of the Shoes Are Dirty. Yun Wanqing was choked speechless, and her whole body was shaking with anger. Her face was livid, and the expressions on her whole face were rich and unusual, including anger, jealousy, and unwillingness. In short, the whole face was wonderful, and the color of her face also changed from green to black, and then from black to white. Second sister, don't be angry. That little bitch is just talking about being powerful. You are the legitimate daughter of the Yun Mansion, and she is just the daughter of an aunt. In terms of identity and status, how can she compare with you? That little bitch insulted my sister and mother in public. According to family rules, she should be punished with 30 canes. When Yun Wanqing heard the words, he curled up his lips and looked at the girl who was speaking with a half smile. The girl was startled and suddenly had a bad feeling in her heart. However, after looking at Yun Wanqing, she boldly puffed up her chest. Needless to say, Yun Wanqing also knew who this person was. This person was Yun Wanyue, the son of the second wife's common wife, Mrs. Chen. He often followed Yun Wanqing to bully the former Yun Wanqing. Sometimes, in order to please Yun Wanqing, he would help her come up with some vicious ideas to harm her. No, this is what the so-called most poisonous woman has in her heart. Yun Wanyue's words were like a wake-up call, waking up the furious Yun Wanqing. She waved her hand and said proudly, Stewardly, tie up this little bitch quickly and deal with her according to the family law. Yes, Miss Second. As soon as Butlerly finished speaking, Yun Wanqing felt a greedy gaze directed at her. Mu Ruffeng felt that the most accurate adjective to describe Butlerly's appearance would be obscene. If I had to add an adverb, it would be very extremely obscene. He was very fat, extremely fat, and the circles of fat around his belly made people look evil, especially since he had 2 horizontal pieces of flesh on his cheeks, a pair of inverted eyebrows, and triangular eyes. The look he looked at Yun Wanqing had a lewd and sinister look. Yun Wanqing felt her stomach churn, and she strongly resisted the urge to kick him in the face. She kept telling herself in her heart that kicking someone would hurt, especially on such a disgusting face. Just when Yun Wanqing tried his best to restrain his feet, Butlerly didn't have any consciousness at all. He shook the fat on his body and slammed into the muzzle of the gun. Yun Wanqing watched Butlerly approaching her and couldn't help but cover her forehead and sigh in her heart, "Yun Wanqing, you are very poor now, so poor that you don't even have a copper plate. If you get the soles of your shoes dirty, you will have to go out barefoot." "Hee, Miss Seventh, Miss Second has already spoken. Please obey me." Butlerly stretched out his claws and was about to grab Yun Wanqing with a lewd smile. Depend on. It was unbearable, and if she had to seek death, she wouldn't be polite. Yun Wanqing raised his slender left leg and kicked towards the target. Immediately afterwards, a scream like a slaughtering pig rang out in the yard, and someone who was kicked away was falling to the ground in a parabola. After successfully hitting the target, Yun Wan retracted his left leg gracefully, then took out a washed white handkerchief, raised his left foot, wiped the sole, and then threw it away in disgust. Yun Wanqing's actions were done in one go and effortlessly. These actions that should not be seen in her daughter's family, she seemed to be born like this.